There are seasons in your life when the world grows quiet, not on the outside, but on the inside. It's a silence that doesn't bring peace, but questions. A space where you begin to wonder if you've been forgotten, where the things you hope for seem impossibly far, and the answers you longed for never arrive. Not because you didn't pray, not because you didn't try, but because somehow nothing responds. And in that stillness, you start to feel like the universe is absent, or worse, indifferent. But what if I told you that silence is not the absence of something? It's the presence of a process that begins not when you ask louder, but when you're finally quiet enough to listen. We live in a culture obsessed with noise, with doing, with proving, with timelines and milestones and constant movement. But the sacred doesn't speak in urgency, it speaks in resonance. And unless your internal world is attuned, you won't hear the signal. You'll miss the invitation. You'll misinterpret the wait as punishment instead of preparation. Karl Pribram, a pioneer of neuroscience, believed that the brain doesn't simply record life, it interprets it through patterns of energy, through frequency, through meaning. The reality you experience is not a direct feed, it's a hologram shaped by your internal coherence. So when things feel delayed, it may not be because the universe is holding back. It might be because your perception is still organizing itself, still learning to receive what is already being offered. And Neville Goddard said something profound. Change your conception of yourself, and you will automatically change the world in which you live. Meaning, if you still carry an identity rooted in fear, in unworthiness, in lack, then even when the blessing arrives, you won't be able to recognize it. You'll reject it. You'll call it coincidence. Or you'll think it belongs to someone else. This is not your fault. It's the natural consequence of emotional exhaustion, of waiting too long without clarity, of hoping so deeply for change that you begin to confuse the silence with abandonment. But let me be clear, the universe does not abandon. It attunes, it prepares, it waits for your readiness to match what it's always wanted to give. Like trying to hear a symphony on a broken radio, the problem isn't with the music, it's with the receiver. The melody is playing, the message is being sent, but the channel must be clear. The heart must be softened. The self-perception must evolve. Otherwise, the divine becomes background noise, missed, misread, or muted by internal interference. So if you've been feeling forgotten, if you've been carrying the weight of silence, of unanswered prayers, of timelines that stretch too far, take a breath. Not to escape, but to open. Because maybe what you call delay is actually a gentle realignment, a sacred calibration of your inner world to finally receive what's always been there. If that speaks to something inside you, if you've ever felt like the universe was speaking, but you couldn't quite hear it, then stay with me. This message is for you. You're not late, you're not lost, you're not broken, you're ripening. And if this resonates, I invite you to pause for a moment, like truly pause. Breathe into this message, then like it, share it with someone else who's been waiting in silence. Comment below what part of you needed to hear this today. And make sure you subscribe, because what we'll uncover next will help you understand why the wait was never punishment, it was preparation. Let's begin. There's a certain kind of ache that doesn't scream. It lingers, quiet, constant, the kind of ache that wraps itself around your thoughts when no one's watching. It's the ache of wondering why things still haven't shifted, why the healing hasn't come, why your energy still feels stuck, even after so many attempts to clear, to change, to pray. And the hardest part isn't even the waiting, it's the wondering if maybe nothing is really listening. But what if the problem isn't that nothing is answering, but that something within you is drowning the answer out? You see, your mind is not just a thinking machine, it's an interpreter. It takes every signal, every emotion, every expectation, and turns that into your version of reality. According to Karl Pribram's model of the brain, the world we see, the guidance we perceive, the timing we trust, it's all filtered through the emotional lens we've unconsciously created. When that lens is filled with resentment, fear of being abandoned, unresolved grief, it creates distortion, static. And just like a radio filled with static, even when the signal is strong, you can't hear it clearly, you doubt it. You question if it was ever there. And most of all, you start to feel like love itself is missing. That's the hidden wound most people carry, not just the pain of waiting, but the belief that the absence of results means the absence of love. That silence must mean rejection. That delays must mean punishment. But that's not how divine timing works. The universe doesn't communicate on a schedule. It communicates in resonance. If you are filled with internal noise, it waits. Not because it doesn't love you, but because it refuses to speak through distortion. Think about how often your emotions reinterpret reality. A message from a friend feels cold, not because it was, but because you were feeling unseen. A kind gesture goes unnoticed, not because it was small, but because your heart was too full of fatigue to receive it. This happens not just in relationships, but in your spiritual connection too. And this is not something to feel shame over. This is human. This is what happens when emotions remain unprocessed, unnamed, unmet. But this is also something you can begin to see, to gently notice. So today, ask yourself, how often does my emotional state shape how I hear the universe? How often does fear speak louder than faith? How often does old pain color what could be a new answer? There is no punishment in the pause, but there is an invitation to listen differently, to feel differently, to become aware of the invisible filters that may be distorting a signal that has never stopped trying to reach you. Because sometimes the interference isn't out there, it's in here. And when you learn to clear the static, to feel without judgment, to sit with yourself honestly, something begins to shift, not outside, inside. And that shift is everything, not because it gives you the answer, but because it finally makes space to hear it. There are moments when you're not reacting to what's happening, but to what once happened. Your body knows it, even if your mind doesn't name it. That tightness in your chest when someone pulls away. That sudden shutdown when plans change. That heavy fog when you're faced with uncertainty. These aren't signs of weakness. They are signs of memory, and not just conscious memory. Somatic memory, cellular memory, the kind of memory that doesn't speak in words but in tension, fatigue, and withdrawal. This is where most healing stalls, because you try to think your way through pain that was never intellectual to begin with. You try to solve it with logic, with analysis, with discipline. But trauma doesn't dissolve through thinking. It dissolves through presence, through safety, through the relearning of trust in a world that once felt unsafe to your most vulnerable self. And that's what your nervous system is doing every time you feel emotionally flooded. It's not malfunctioning, it's protecting. It's replaying an old script written in a moment of helplessness, a moment when something was too big, too fast, or too overwhelming to be processed fully. And that moment left an imprint, not just in your memory, but in your biology. So now, when you wait for answers, when you hope for change, when you step toward something unfamiliar, your body remembers, it braces, it prepares for the worst. Even when the worst is long gone, even when the present is safe, and this internal conflict creates confusion. You wonder why you feel anxious when there's no threat, why you feel numb when something good happens, why you feel like running away when you're finally close to something that matters. It's not self-sabotage, it's self-protection. And unless that's honored, not shamed, your healing will always feel just out of reach. Neuroscience has shown us that the nervous system is plastic. It can change. It can unlearn fear. It can reorganize itself around safety, but only when it's given what it never had: consistency, compassion, and the space to move at its own pace. Not forced, not rushed, not judged, just held. So if you find yourself stuck between who you've been and who you're becoming, know this: your body isn't betraying you. It's inviting you to slow down, to notice, to feel again, because deep healing doesn't come from resisting your reactions, it comes from understanding them. The delay you feel in your life, it might not be spiritual rejection, it might be biological readiness. Your system may be saying, "I want this, but I'm still learning how to feel safe having it." And that's not weakness, that's wisdom. That's your body choosing integrity over performance. That's your inner world asking for time to catch up with your vision. And when you honor that, when you stop blaming yourself for the slowness, you begin to align with something sacred, timing that includes not just your goals, but your humanity. This is how divine timing becomes embodied timing. Not something you chase, but something you slowly become ready to receive. There's a kind of silence that doesn't soothe, it stings. The kind of silence that comes after all your prayers, your efforts, your inner work. When you've tried so hard to do things right, and yet nothing moves, nothing shifts, nothing speaks. And somewhere in the quiet, you begin to wonder if you're being punished. It's a thought most won't admit, but it hides beneath the surface of so many hearts. If I'm doing everything I can, why does it still feel like nothing is happening? That's when stillness stops feeling like peace and starts feeling like abandonment. But what if the stillness isn't here to punish you, but to protect something sacred within you? Stillness isn't the absence of movement, it's the pause that creates space for deeper alignment. It's the sacred recalibration that often comes before the breakthrough. But if your nervous system has been trained to equate silence with danger, absence with rejection, and waiting with worthlessness, then this pause won't feel like a gift. It will feel like exile. So many carry this wound, the subconscious belief that their worth is measured by how fast they heal, how much they produce, how consistently they stay positive. But healing is not a performance. Growth is not a sprint. And being stuck is often not stuck at all. It's gestation, a becoming, a reformation that requires darkness before it offers light. Think of the moments in nature when transformation is hidden, the seed beneath the soil, the caterpillar in the cocoon, the winter before the bloom. These moments are silent, but they are not empty. They are sacred intervals of preparation, where the invisible work is the most important work of all. Yet in modern life, we've been taught to mistrust these quiet seasons, to label them as failure, to interpret them as signs that something's gone wrong. But the truth is, some of your most important healing happens when nothing seems to be happening. When you're learning to stay, to breathe, to let go, to soften. Even when your mind is begging for answers, it takes courage to stay present in the quiet, to stop bargaining with time, to stop asking, "What am I doing wrong?" and instead ask, "What am I being invited to feel?" That question alone can shift the entire experience of waiting, from punishment to participation. Because you're not being punished, you're being shaped, not by delay, but by presence, not by outcomes, but by how deeply you're allowing yourself to remain here, fully awake, fully human, even when the outcome is unknown. This is where a deeper faith is born, not the kind that believes because it sees, but the kind that remains soft, even in silence, that holds itself tenderly, without answers, that stops measuring worth by the speed of the process and starts honoring the depth of the process itself. And in this honoring, something changes, not all at once, not with fanfare, but subtly, quietly. Like the soil cracking open for a sprout that no one saw coming. Stay here, not in punishment, but in patience. Because stillness is not the absence of movement, it is the birthplace of meaning. There's a moment in life, often quiet, almost invisible, when what once felt like success no longer satisfies. You've done the work, you've crossed the milestones, you've held yourself together through seasons that would have broken others. And still, there's an ache, a subtle, persistent ache, not of failure, but of emptiness. It's the kind of ache that comes after the applause fades, after the to-do list is complete, after everyone else's needs have been met. It creeps in at the edges of your silence, in the middle of a good day, in the quiet of the night, in the stillness of your own company. It whispers, "Is this all there is?" That's a hard question, especially when you've built a life that looks complete, especially when people around you say you're lucky, blessed, accomplished. But deep down you sense a disconnect, a split between the life you're living and the self you're longing to express. And that longing, it's not selfish, it's sacred. You see, most of us were taught how to succeed, how to strive, how to push through, but few were ever shown how to rest, how to feel safe in stillness, how to be loved without earning it. So we learn to measure our value by output, by productivity, by the admiration of others, until one day, our soul grows tired of being useful and begins to cry out to be seen. That cry doesn't mean you're broken, it means you're ready to remember a deeper kind of worth, one that isn't dependent on what you produce, how you perform, or who you please, a worth that simply is. This is the turning point, the sacred discomfort that invites you inward, not to abandon your dreams, but to reconnect with what those dreams were meant to serve, not to throw away all you've built, but to ask what part of you got lost along the way. Because the ache beneath the achievement isn't a flaw, it's a signal, a spiritual and emotional signal that you've outgrown the version of yourself that could survive on approval alone. And now something else is calling, something quieter, truer, something that may not earn applause, but will finally feel like home. This shift doesn't require a dramatic change, it requires an honest one, a willingness to ask, what do I truly want when no one is watching? Who am I when I'm not trying to impress or prove? What kind of life feels like truth, not just success? These are not easy questions, but they are necessary ones, because the soul does not thrive on pressure. It thrives on presence. It thrives on alignment. It thrives on being met, not as a role, but as a whole being. So if you've reached that quiet place, that questioning place, that aching place, welcome. You are not lost. You are arriving at a depth of self that no title, paycheck, or praise can ever give you. And from that depth, a new kind of life can emerge. One where success isn't measured by what you accomplish, but by how deeply you allow yourself to be alive within it. There comes a weight that doesn't belong to you, yet you carry it as if it were your own. Invisible burdens inherited in silence, emotional debts you never signed for, but somehow feel responsible to repay. It begins early, often before memory, when the nervous system learns to adapt, to protect, to survive. You start carrying emotions that aren't yours, guilt that isn't yours, shame that was never meant for you. You become the keeper of the peace, the fixer, the one who makes things better at the cost of yourself. And after years of this, it becomes so normal that the exhaustion feels like identity. You walk through life with a quiet heaviness. You function, you smile, you show up. But underneath, your body is tired in a way rest doesn't fix. Because it's not just physical, it's emotional, it's ancestral. It's a weight built from generations of silence, unspoken grief, unmet needs. And maybe no one ever told you this, but you were never meant to carry what broke them. You were never meant to be the container for another's unhealed past. You were never meant to be the emotional regulator of your family, your partner, your workplace. And yet, here you are, bracing yourself every day for the next wave of tension, quietly scanning for what might go wrong, managing everyone else's feelings while abandoning your own. But what if your sensitivity isn't a flaw? It's a language your soul speaks fluently. What if your body, in its hyper-awareness, isn't dysfunctional? It's wise. It's not betraying you. It's trying to keep you safe. It learned early that love wasn't safe unless it was earned. That belonging required shape shifting. That silence was the price of harmony. This is not your fault, but it has become your pattern. And patterns, while painful, are not permanent. Somewhere within, your body remembers what it's like to feel safe, not because everything is perfect, but because you are no longer abandoning yourself to make others comfortable. This is the moment when self-responsibility meets self-compassion, when you begin to sort what's yours from what never was, not to blame, not to resent, but to release. Because holding it all has cost you something: your peace, your clarity, your right to exist without apologizing for it. And in that recognition, something holy begins, a reclamation, not dramatic, not loud, but steady. A whisper of truth that says, you are not here to carry the weight of unspoken generations. You are here to live freely, softly, clearly, as yourself. You don't have to prove your goodness through pain. You don't have to stay small to keep others from feeling uncomfortable. Your empathy is not a contract to suffer. It's okay to let it fall away. The guilt, the roles, the expectations. What remains will not be emptiness. What remains will be you, just you. And that will be enough. It always was. Somewhere along the journey, something inside you learned how to survive. You learned how to smile through pain, how to carry what wasn't yours, how to keep going when nothing made sense. And for that, you deserve to be seen, not just for what you endured, but for who you are beneath all that effort. Because beneath the performance, there's presence. Beneath the roles you've played, there's truth. And beneath the exhaustion, there is a self still waiting to be heard, not the self shaped by expectation, not the self designed to be admired, but the quiet, honest self, the one you left behind to be loved. Coming home to that self is not a straight path. It's a spiral, a returning, a remembering, and it begins not in dramatic change, but in gentle honesty. In the small moments when you finally tell yourself the truth. I'm tired of pretending. I'm tired of performing. I'm tired of carrying things that were never mine. That truth, it doesn't break you. It liberates you. Because once you begin to live from truth, even if it's trembling, the world begins to shift. You stop chasing peace and begin creating it. You stop pleasing and begin listening. You stop abandoning yourself for love and begin loving yourself enough to stay. And this changes everything. It changes how you speak, how you rest, how you make choices, not to impress, not to prove, but because something in you finally trusts that who you are, beneath the fixing, beneath the striving, is already enough. That trust grows slowly, quietly, but it's real. And as it grows, so does your life. A life that doesn't just look good, but feels true. A life where presence matters more than performance, where softness is not weakness, where stillness is not laziness, where your nervous system gets to exhale and say, I'm safe now, I don't have to fight anymore. You are not behind, you are not broken, you are not too late, you are here. And here is enough, here is sacred. So if something in you resonated, if something stirred or softened, let it stay, let it breathe, let it root into the places where you once had to harden. Because this gentle, honest, quiet awakening is not the end of something. It's the beginning of your return to wholeness, the beginning of your deepest life, the beginning of coming home to yourself. If you felt something shift during this time together, if these words felt like your own thoughts, finally spoken out loud, you are not alone. There is a community of others walking this same path toward softness, toward healing, toward truth. Like this, save it. Share it with someone whose heart might need to hear it. And if you want to walk deeper, come with us. This is only the beginning.